Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Talking Comics. I'm your host Julius Freeman, and today I have Michael Derrick, the writer and creator of the Abductibles that is now live on Indiegogo. Michael, what's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for
Going
having me
good,
on your
man.
show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for hitting me up and asking to be on my show because it's what I want to do for this channel. What I want to do for this channel is to interview and talk to as many creators as I can, so that way readers can get to know the creators behind the campaigns and you know start to build this community that's gonna, in my opinion, anyway, it's gonna replace the mainstream stuff in a few years, and pretty soon a lot of these YouTube channels that are doing this will one day probably have ex pros on their shows because there'll be another place
Mm,
to interview them, right? So want
yeah,
to get
we're
want to get yeah want to get ahead of the game, so
getting in early.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but considering that you, from what I understand and what I've seen, this is your third campaign. Your
hmm
first book, Abductibles, I'm pretty sure it met its goal, and it's has probably has a good following, considering that you currently have 104 backers with 25 days left, which is really impressive, actually, with the $8,000 fixed goal. So, give us a little brief summary as to what the Abductibles is all about.
Yeah. So, like you said, this is my third crowdfunding campaign. My previous one was a superhero book called Grayscale, which
Oh
fulfilled
yes.
earlier this year. hmm about a vigilante who controls karma. And then the first one was back in 2019, which was the original Abductibles. This time, we this is the sequel, but of course, we are selling both issues 1 and 2 for people who did miss out on that original campaign.
Very nice.
Um, yeah, and it's basically a sci-fi action comedy. The original premise was about basically an alien abduction gone wrong for the aliens. They
Very
abduct this
nice.
big muscly dude, and unfortunately for them, he wakes up on the probing table and proceeds to go full John Wick on their asses, and it's
That's
page
cool.
after page of glorious violence as drawn by Ibai Canales, who people might be familiar with. He's done the artwork on a lot of campaigns, most notably Richard Myers Iron Sights, and then
Oh,
he's done
okay.
SOS. He has another book that's funding on Indiegogo right now called The Ace from Edwin Acevedo. Um,
Okay, yeah. All right, so he's the artist for
yeah,
that book as well. Cool.
yeah.
Wow,
So
he's getting around
very
then. He's getting around the indie comic scene. Good for him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's a very prolific, very fast artist, and as you can see from these preview pages, very great. He really sells the comedy aspect of the series, which is very important because as many jokes as I put in the script, it would all fall flat if it weren't for Canals's humorous art style. And the thing about Abductibles 2 is that we're going full color, as you can see here, and Canales is drawing and coloring the book all himself.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, the first Abductibles was 52 pages, black and white. This time we're going 60 pages full color. So it's all about going bigger and better, kind of expanding that original concept of the alien abduction gone wrong and taking it even further to where now we're going to be visiting multiple alien worlds and seeing all these different alien races. And we're also kind of, as you can see, flipping the dynamic to where,
I'm sorry, just
as
saw that panel.
oh yeah, that's one of my favorite panels. Is That's one way to probe somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing is like so and the first abductible is obviously the big muscly dude who we just call the abductee, fittingly enough. He obviously he was kind of the enemy of the gray aliens. He was wiping them out with no remorse. But in the second book, we've actually flipped that dynamic to where he's actually working with the Greys to fight an even greater threat to the galaxy, known as the Reptilian. So yeah, we're flipping that dynamic. He's actually when we start the book, he's actually on their home planet, because from the Grey's perspective, and really in the context of the story, the abductee is pretty much the most badass man in the galaxy. So when they have this threat bearing down on their civilization, in their mind, there's only one man to call to help them out, and that is the abductee. So um, they, yeah, we that's kind of the jumping off point for book two, and then things just get crazier and eventually escalate into this full blown intergalactic war between alien races. So it's going to be awesome. It's going to be very even more action packed than the first book, and yeah, that's really what it's all about. Is just I want to have page after page of gratuitous violence and laugh out loud moments, and just make it as entertaining as humanly possible.
That's awesome, man. You don't get that many. You don't get that many books like this these days, where it's both action and comedy. Because it's very comedy. I would imagine is very hard to do in a comic book form. Only a few people have been able to do it. Like Sergio Ordonez is one that comes to mind. That's able to he pretty much mastered it in the long not so much Mad Magazine, but his own comic book. Because Mad Magazine, they have their own little comics, but it's a mixture of things. Whereas
Right.
Sergio Jonas is an actual comic book that you could purchase from him, like Gru and the other I think the Funnies. I think he forgot the name of that book. The Funnies, I think it was one. So it's cool to see that you have a mixture of things for this project. And I have to ask you, are you a UFO or alien enthusiast, or are you a person who believes in the alien lore, I guess, was known as like the UFO community and whatnot. So are you all about that, or are you just writing it because the subject interested you and you want to, just write something about aliens?
I'm kind of in the Fox Mulder vein of I want to believe, but
Right.
whether or not there is whether or not the truth is out there is yet to be determined, as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, the thing is, I was really, really into aliens and UFOs and stuff when I was younger. It was kind of an obsession. Not so much these days, but speaking of Fox Mulder, yeah, I was really into the X-Files, and honestly, that's probably kind of what sparked my that's kind of what sparked my interest in all this stuff. And so I would like read all the books about ancient aliens and Project Blue Book and the Majestic 12 and all the weird kind of lore that surrounds the idea of these gray aliens. So, when I decided to make a comic book that kind of featured all that lore, it was already kind of in my brain. That it was just kind of reinterpreted in this funny comic book. So, yeah, definitely something I've been interested in my whole life, but not. I would say I'm still into it, but just not in the way I used to be.
Right. So you kind of almost outgrew it in a sense, from what I gather.
Yeah, and that's interesting you say that, because I feel like that's kind of reflected in the book, because the gray aliens and all these conspiracies we're talking about, it's kind of usually presented in a very serious matter, a very it's taken very, very seriously. But with the Abductibles, we're kind of taking those serious concepts and kind of poking fun at them in a way, though. We're not necessarily laughing at them, but more, with them, because I am, I do still have love for all this stuff, So
Yeah, no, you definitely took the concept and flipped it on its head, because I don't think I've ever seen or heard of an idea where an abductee fights back. It's always, the story is always, I was paralyzed, I couldn't move, and they're poking needles in me, and they're these aliens were talking a different language, blah blah blah. But it's cool to see that this guy, this void rage type of character, is like, oh, F this, I'm gonna take matters into my own hands and just shoot my way out. And it's cool. So that's pretty cool, man. That's actually a great idea. And like I said, not many people have done that idea, which makes this book even a little bit more now a lot more interested for me, because I remember seeing this campaign back in you said 2019, right, with the first one that you
Yeah.
launched. And I
Yeah.
remember seeing it, and I remember like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But I just kind of skimmed through it real quickly, and I really didn't know what it was about. But now that you put it in context, I'm like, okay, I like that. I dig that.
Yeah.
That's cool. And this is why, guys. This is why the people who are watching live or who are gonna watch the replay, this is why you should go indie, because of this kind of stuff. This kind of stuff you would never see in the mainstream because they probably won't get it, you know. And with this and with the greatness of crowdfunding, readers can pick and choose what they want to support and what they want to read. And this is definitely something I would love to read now because you know, now I'm curious to see how he fights his way out, and also the art is great too. Now that I have the context that it's a comedy action comic, and it does look like a lot of fun. It looks like the artist had a lot of fun. It looks like you had a lot of fun writing it when you did create it, and so it's great. Look at me, look at that. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. You know, some people have kind of compared it. They said that it kind of has that heavy metal vibe. I could definitely see that. You know, very tongue in cheek, very bombastic. And of course, our artist Ibai Canales, he actually lives in Spain, so he does have that kind of European influence to his art. Kind of maybe a little 2000 AD vibes. You know, that kind of aesthetic where, you know, cartoony but also really violent. And yeah, you know, that is kind of I think I got lucky because I really did, like you said, I did kind of stumble on a really nice high concept where it's just like it's something people can instantly like get behind. Like, okay, the guy gets abducted by aliens, but he fights back. And you know, again, going back to the idea of flipping the dynamic, you know, the gray aliens are usually presented as these cold, emotionless beings, these unknowable entities. You know, whenever anybody describes their abduction experience, it is almost like a horror movie. Like, you know, they have this like sleep paralysis where they're being, they're being, you know, poked and prodded by these creepy little guys. Like, but then to actually present that kind of usually creepy thing and then put it in a comedic context and almost like give the humans back their power because, you know, it's the in this story, it's the aliens that fear us rather than the other way around. So it really is all about just flipping the dynamic and presenting things in a new and interesting light.
That's cool. That's very cool. And I can see that you're probably going to introduce the readers new characters for the second book. I take it, considering that
Yeah, absolutely.
these designs. Yeah, this is cool. I like this guy. This guy is a interesting looking character
Yeah,
here. It's pretty cool.
yeah, that's the
Who's this?
avian.
That's who is this?
We call him the avian. He's the
The avian.
reptilian's kind of right hand man. I agree. That's a very cool design from Canales, and he actually features that character in particular features a very prominent role in the book too because he and the abductee had this really badass, you know, drag out fight on an alien planet, and it's probably my favorite fight scene in the book. It gets very again we don't shy away from the violence in this book, so it's you know, it's aliens, so you can really go as far as you want with the gratuitous violence, which I always love from comics. So yeah, expect great things from the avian there, and like you said, because the thing is, the first Abductibles, it mostly took place on that initial alien spaceship that the abductee woke up on. And as we saw from those preview pages from the first one, the black and white pages, it really is just, you know, page after page of the abductee kind of fighting his way through the ship, searching for answers, trying to figure out how he got there. And when he wakes up, initially, he actually has amnesia, so he doesn't even know who he is as he's fighting his way through the ship. So he's searching for answers, and of course, we have a lot of twists and turns. And at around the halfway mark, the story kind of takes a turn that people don't expect, and it opens up a whole new layer to the story. But in book two, because in the first one, you know, we exclusively dealt with the traditional stereotypical gray aliens. one fun thing about book 2 is that we can actually see all the different alien races besides the Greys. So it's
Okay,
gonna,
very cool.
yeah, we've got the avian, who's kind of obviously based on a bird, and then we've got the Piscine, who's kind of looks like a fish out of water, and
Yeah, kind of
yeah,
almost look like a Rick and Morty character, a Rick and Morty alien character,
oh
a little bit,
yeah, yeah.
slightly.
People have said they do kind of get like this. Really needs to be like a Adult Swim like animated show
Oh, it'd
vibe.
be great. It'd be great. Like I said, you already have the premise. It's a cool premise. It's
Hmm.
something that I think a lot of people, especially UFO enthusiasts who understand the lore, they know the lore, they know all about it. And to get this concept and turn on its head, that's a great idea. Like a John Wick in
Hmm.
space, so that's cool. I
Absolutely.
like that. And of course, the little green man they look more. Oh, little green man materialized almost, militarized, I should say.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's very helpful that I am using like the gray aliens because they are such a fixture in pop culture. Like, and there is so much lore established with them that I can kind of use that as like the groundwork to do my own thing. Like, perfect example is the little green men, who, in the context of our story, are basically just the gray aliens' elite fighting force, and
Ah,
they're
okay.
yeah,
Very
they're clad
cool.
in that green battle armor. They have the best weaponry, and they're kind of like
The
the
Navy SEALs
yeah,
of the
like the
story.
badass strike
Yeah,
team that you call them in when all bets are off and you
right.
want someone eliminated.
Very cool. Very cool. I like that. I'm
Yeah.
digging that. And then we got the reptilian, which looks like a pretty badass look. Again, it's a cool look there. The reptilian. So this is what the reptilian race will look like in the story. They all look like this, or is this just one that looks like
He,
this?
yeah, he's kind of a unique case. We do our take on the reptilian is a little different. But yeah, he in particular, he's kind of a mutant offspring of his own race. So, and we'll actually get into his origins, like why he looks the way he is.
Very
Um,
cool.
and yeah, in the story, he is the main villain, and the abductee being this big, muscly, roid rage dude, like obviously he kind of had a field day in the first book, wiping out the gray aliens with his bare hands. But this time around, he's in for a fight, and the reptilian is no pushover, and it's going to be a life or death situation. And so yeah, the
Cool.
reptilian, he's kind of, in our story, he's kind of presented as this galactic warlord who is kind of leading the charge to wipe out all the gray colonies throughout the Milky Way galaxy, with the eventual goal of heading to Earth. So he's one vicious sob.
I'm digging this, man. I'm digging this. It's like a little bit like a wrestling build up. Can't wait for this character to meet our
Yeah,
babyface hero. And the big showdown, the pay per view in the last few pages of the book, which will be fascinating.
absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like the way you think. Yeah, and not to give too much away, but let's just say early or midway through the book, the reptilian gets his heat on our baby face, and
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha. I
we
gotcha.
do set up the comeback. So
All right. Very cool. Very cool. You can't go wrong with stories like that. You always want to see our hero come back
yeah,
from a defeat. So that's good. That's good to hear. We're gonna see something like that. So let's see. We got the Insectin. This guy looks pretty cool too. And let us.
yeah.
Who's this character here? Is he part of the Reptilian clan, or is he against the Reptilian clan, or is he like a
So
middle way kind of guy? We don't know if he's a villain or a good guy.
he's one of the reptilian's henchmen, and in the
Okay.
same vein as the avian. Obviously, we wanted to kind of take influence from well, I guess I could give this away. Like, so the reptilians men, they're called the Devaloids. Essentially, they're devolved races of various alien races that have been artificially devolved. Um, so you might have a planet, for instance, where insects evolved into the sentient race of that particular planet, but then the mad scientist character who also plays a very important role. He kind of devolves them to create these mindless monstrosities that kind of do the reptilians' bidding. and they're kind of his just this big army of like brutish, savage alien beasts. So yeah,
Very cool. Wow, man, this is actually chock full of stuff. This is awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm digging this. I'm digging this. All right, and then finally we have the decrepit one, which ID Crisis here commented, decrepit one reminds me of the aliens from the Peter Jackson's Bad Taste film. I had never seen it, but
yeah.
I
Me
heard of
neither.
it.
But I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, so
I
so take us. What is the decrepit? Is that the finger? Is he flipping the finger off? Or is he saying come here? What's he doing here with this
Well,
pose?
you know, the Greys, they only have the three fingers, so you know, it could go either way depending on your perspective. It could also make you wonder where he's planning on putting that finger, but we won't get into that.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, I mentioned the mad scientist character. That is our mad scientist in the
Okay.
Abductibles. He's kind of an exiled Gray, who, you know, his experiments and his ideas were so off the wall that he actually got exiled from Gray society, and
Okay.
obviously he's a bit bitter about that, and he has he's kind of the puppet master behind the scenes, pulling the strings for all the events in the book. He, you know, he's the brain behind the reptilians' brawn, and he's the one that developed the devolution serum, and it is his goal to devolve all the intelligent races in the galaxy, so that he's the only intelligent life form.
Wow, dude, that's you got you got a really solid story here. I'm actually very excited about this now. I'm
Yeah.
no, I'm gonna make it official. I'm gonna back this. I'm gonna back this.
Oh,
And I
thank
don't
you,
back that
man.
many. I don't back that many projects because obviously the COVID situation has slowed things down. But now
Yeah,
that
it's tough right
yeah,
now.
it's kind of opening up. So now I have a little bit of money to spend. So I might back this story and actually check it out because it's I'm digging what you're writing here. It's almost like a space opera in a sense. So it's cool. It has
Yeah,
everything
absolutely.
that I want. It has fight scenes, a comedy. It has a concept that I do like in general, which is the UFO. Because I'm also interested in the UFO phenomenon, and I done my own research and done my own reading the books that are out there, the
Hmm.
movies. You mentioned the X Files. X Files was a staple in my childhood growing up. So yeah, this is great. I'm digging this for sure. And if you guys are thinking about backing it, back it. If you're into sci-fi action comedy, you won't. It sounds like you won't regret backing the Abductibles to Reticulous, which is what I like that. I like that subtitle there. It was great. So it's wow.
Yeah.
This is fantastic, man. Let's check out the trailer and then we'll talk some more about your journey as a comic book creator. So
Yeah,
let's
for
check
sure.
out this trailer here. All right, very awesome. It's I I love the Get the lube and all of that stuff, man.
Yeah,
It's
you
fantastic.
gotta put in those probe jokes wherever you can. It kind of comes with the territory.
That's cool, man. This is awesome. This actually looks like a very fun project. What comic books should be, right? Comic books, not all
Yeah.
comic books, but there should be a good amount of comic books that shouldn't take themselves too seriously, but still have enough of a cool concept where you are still able to enjoy and not just enjoy, but also think about things like other
Hmm.
lives and other planets outside our own. And yeah, it sounds like the first
Yeah.
one was a bit was your, I guess you could say, your indie book, the one that where you're constrained to one setting, but now it seems like you're expanding it to further expand and build this universe you started with the first Abductible. So do you plan on making is this like a long-term series, or is this going to be like a short where once you finish telling the story you're going to be done and move on to something else?
Well, the original idea was conceived to just be the one shot, but I had a really good idea for the sequel that just kind of came to me during the production of the first book. So, uh, and the first one did have a pretty definitive conclusion. However, it did also set up this sequel. I do have a really good idea for a third book if there is a demand for it. But at that point, that would be the definitive conclusion to the saga, I guess you could say. But for me, it's really important, especially for these crowdfunding campaigns, to kind of keep these books self-contained in their own way. Obviously, like I said, Abductibles 2 does lead directly out of the events of the first book, but it also will have a very satisfying and definitive conclusion. So people won't have to worry about a cliffhanger or anything like that. It's everything you need is right within those pages. But yeah, at some point down the line, I definitely do have plans for a third book, and that would actually dig even more deeper into the kind of UFO conspiracy lore type of stuff. We'd go more toward like the ancient alien side of things, and like
Very
um,
cool.
modern day, conspiracies, and we'll actually tie it into stuff like the Illuminati and all like the weird, Alex Jones type of stuff. So, hopefully one day we can get in on that.
Very cool. That sounds exciting. That sounds awesome. So so yeah, let's talk about a little bit about your history in comics. So when was the first time, or yeah, how old were you when you first discovered your first comic book, and what led to you deciding to want to produce your own comic books? Because everyone has that story, especially
Mm.
if you have your own project on the crowdfunding campaign, or if you get your book published. There's always a story of like when they first read a comic book and when was the time, which comic book was the one that pushed you to go, you know what, I want to make this stuff myself. So
Hmm.
take us down that journey of your story.
Yeah, so I think I had always wanted to write in one form or another, whether it was comics or movies or novels. It's just something I've always done ever as far back as I can remember. But specifically for comic books, I have a cousin who was really into comics. That he was an older cousin. He lived, this was my mom's side of the family. They lived out of state in Louisiana, and so we wouldn't see them that often. But every now and then we would visit them, and his room was just filled wall to wall with stacks of comic books.
Very
And of
cool.
course, I grew up in the '90s. This was before like the big, before superheroes kind of became synonymous with movies.
Right.
But you know, everybody, even if you don't read comics as a kid, everybody knows Batman, everybody knows Spider-Man. So, the superhero aspect that was kind of already just ingrained in me from a pop culture perspective. But it was really seeing like the actual comic books that, like I said, my cousin had that really kind of got me into it. It just seemed so cool and edgy. Again, this was the '90s, so comics were very edgy and violent, more so that probably at any other time.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of fascinating to me. And then, of course, he took me to my first comic shop, and it was it was kind of inevitable that I would want to get into it and do it myself because it was just so cool to me.
Very cool. Yeah, I had a similar situation with me and my cousin. Not he didn't have wall to wall, comic books, but he did one day come
Mhm.
over with the first issue of Spawn, and
Oh, yes.
yeah, and I remember, seeing it and then going and then kind of looking at it and going, hey, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's a comic book. And at that point, I didn't know what a comic book was.
Hmm.
And I was like, it's like a coloring book or something. So he's like, no, it's a comic. It's like a story, but there's like drawings. So I looked at it and I was just mesmerized by what I saw. I was like, wow, the artwork is amazing. Like what the hell is
Hmm.
this? And then a few years later, um, I happened to stumble upon my first comic book shop. So my dad took me and my siblings to the mall for our back to school supplies to purchase our back to school supplies, clothes and materials and what have
Hmm.
you. And when he drove by into the mall, there was some little outlets outside the mall, and that's where I saw the posters of Spider-Man and Batman. I was like, oh, what is that? And so I made a mental note of it, and I went back on my own, took the bus, saved some money, and then entered the comic book shop, and that was it, man. I was hooked. I was like, wow, this is
Yeah,
amazing. Like, what is this place?
like
Like,
a
what?
whole other world.
Yeah, it's a whole different world. It was almost like a secret club, a secret society of sorts, because
Yeah.
how many people knew. Well, I mean, they knew about comics, but at that time, like you mentioned, the '90s, because it was the same time for me. It was very like, oh, that's for kids, right? That stuff's for kids.
Mm.
It's not for adults. But when you dig and you start like reading actual comic books, you start to see just how much it is. It was for kids, but not really for kids. It's more
Mm.
for targeted for like the teenagers and what have you. And then, of course, in the '90s, it wasn't cool like it is now. So I would have to hide my collection from my friends because, my friends always thought they're, like, oh yeah, comic books are for freaking nerds and
Yeah.
wimps and stuff like that. And I was like, well, shit. But if only you knew what I had in my closet.
I kind of miss those days when it wasn't that cool to be into superheroes because now everybody's mom knows who Moon Knight
Yeah,
is. And it's kind of ridiculous at this point. Um, but yeah, it was more that the '90s were kind of that was kind of like the last time where you could actually like pick up the comics in like the supermarket and stuff. So like when
yeah,
I
that's
would go
right.
shopping with my mom, she would buy like comics for me and stuff. And then, but yeah, eventually it just became you could only get them really in the comic shop. But like you said, it is like this whole like exclusive club. It almost felt like, and the
Yeah.
comics at the time, like as a kid, they just seeing the cover art, they felt so like they felt almost dangerous because like the heroes at the time like Spawn, like you said, very violent and
Oh
they were
yeah.
violent, but they also kids could get into them because it felt cool. So
Yeah. Oh
it's
yeah.
and that
Well, for
that I
me, I
think.
was I was I was an
Oh, go ahead.
art nut, so I was
Mm,
really into art in general anyway at that point. So when I
okay.
saw Tom McFarlane's artwork, that's what blew me away was the amount of
Yeah.
detail in his panels, and I was like, what is this? This is crazy. Now, of course, when I started reading Spawn, I couldn't make heads or toes about it, so I didn't know what the hell was going on. So I didn't really read Spawn too much. I just bought him because I just like looking at the art.
Hmm.
And then, but the book for me was Pit, the unknown
Oh yeah.
Pit, man. That book was the book for me, man. That
That's
was
'90s
like
right
my
there.
book, and it was just so sad that he took so long to come out with new
Mm,
issues, to wait, almost a year for a new issue, but it was always worth the wait because he just had this like impeccable, like uncanny style of like like the
yeah.
'90s style, but he had a good balance. Some people were so over the board that I really couldn't get into it, but Dale Known was definitely the guy who in my opinion was the more balanced in terms of like um, balancing the story as well as giving you the badass artwork that he would provide for his pit books.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's a shame that he doesn't get enough credit because he
yeah, you're
does
right.
kind of
He
get
doesn't.
overlooked by the Todd
He does.
McFarlane and the Rob Liefelds and stuff. So yeah, he was definitely a fixture of the '90s that people tend to forget, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the '90s was a great time for indie creators as well because that's when those big five artists from Marvel jumped ship and they started their own publishing company and that kind of inspired a whole movement of indie creators to just, let's just do it ourselves, and let's not rely on DC or Marvel to make our own comic books. And there was a great, Jeff Smith comes to mind.
Mm.
The Who's the other one? Moore. I can't remember his name.
Terry Moore.
Terry Moore. Yeah, Terry Moore was another one. There's also a lot of underground artists that have come out, but they're kind of forgotten with time, obviously, because like I said, the comic book culture of the '90s was very secret, very small,
Mm-hmm.
and it was. I will admit that I missed the days of going to comic shops and talking with fellow comic book enthusiasts. I'm not gonna call them nerds because I was one of them, so I'll just say enthusiasts and talk about comics. I miss those days. I miss those days of going to the shop, looking at the new release, wall,
Mm-hmm.
and looking for new books and for your favorite books, and then talking to people who are all looking for the same thing you were, and then oh, what do you think about this book, and then recommending books to each other. It was those days I miss the most because
Yeah.
that I felt that was the time when yeah, you were eager and hungry to look for new stuff. So I'm hoping that well, now I'm not hoping, I'm glad to see that it's kind of transferred to online, to social
Mm-hmm.
media. Of course, if you have to sift through all the bullshit that goes on there,
Yeah.
but once you sift through the bullshit and you find actual, like, you're one of, I consider you one of them, because now that you explain to me your story, now it's like, okay, you're definitely one of the guys who, like, I would have talked to at the comic shop, and we could
Yeah.
talk comics. So it's cool
Absolutely.
to find each other on social media, and then be on the show and talk about our favorite comics and what inspired us to make comics. So
Yeah.
it's cool. It's
Absolutely.
cool to have you on, and also the other people that I have on this channel. So it's cool. It's cool to have this, especially with this project, the Abductibles too, which is something that I think all of you guys should be backing. And it looks like you're close, man. You're close, and you have 25 days left. 24
Yeah.
days left.
Yeah. We are on our 30-day extension, so it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. And we do have a fixed goal, so we're hoping to. I guess we're obviously over halfway there. Still got a ways to go, but I think we can pull it off. It's going to be close, but it's I hope the fact that this is my third crowdfunding campaign, hopefully that buys me some trust with people, because it is important, especially with crowdfunding, to build that level of trust with your
Yeah,
backers. And
absolutely.
so many creators have burned us in the past with
Yeah.
unfulfilled books, and it's a shame that they kind of put a bad taste in some people's mouths for crowdfunding. But there are people like you and me who take it very seriously, and we want to do it right, and we want to
Yeah.
right by our backers. So
Yeah,
give us
absolutely. 'Cause this is the future. This is it. This is the future of indie comics, and unfortunately, uh, the comic book stores, I don't want them to go away, but they might.
mm,
Um, they might go away, and I hope that um, we can figure something out to help these comic book stores, because I don't want them to go away. If it wasn't for the stores, you and I would not be making comics today because of the stores.
exactly.
So I
And
would like to keep them, so that way the new generation can have the same experience that you and I had, which was walking in for the first time and going, what? Whoa, this is so much, but it's so cool. I want to consume everything in this store, And so
yeah,
it's an experience like no other. And so I hope if this movement does gain more traction as the years go by, we figure out something to help out our local comic book shops that are located throughout the country. So hopefully something comes about it.
for sure. And people always say, like, oh, the comic industry is dying. The thing is, like, the art form will never die. It's
Right.
how that art form will be produced will change. Obviously crowdfunding is the big thing now. And I would, like you, I really do hope that the comic shops survive. Um, but ultimately, however whatever the industry turns into, the art form will always be there, and so that's the most important thing is
Yeah,
keeping the art form alive.
absolutely, absolutely, it's very evident that that's still the case. The art form is still it's the mainstream comic book industry may be dying, but what's thriving from it is the
Mm-hmm.
indie creators making their own stuff and crowdfunding their campaigns. Now, the next
Yeah,
step obviously is to fulfill the campaigns.
yeah.
That's what's been the most difficult obstacle for a lot of indie creators is to fulfill your campaigns. And
Mm-hmm.
transparency is key. You know, a lot of backers are very forgiving if you just let them know, hey, you know, I hit a snag, but you will still get your books. You just might have to wait a little later to get your books, but
Mm-hmm.
you will get them. And I've seen, from what I've seen anyway, a lot of backers are very forgiving, and they will have no problem with that. So as long as you are communicating that to them. And like you
Absolutely.
mentioned, yeah, and like you mentioned before, you know, a lot of people have been burned in the past, and yeah, there is a bad taste for crowdfunding campaigns. So it's going to be up to the rest of us to make sure that doesn't happen for everyone. That we fulfill, because that's important. Very
Yeah,
important
and
factor.
I'm a creator, but I'm also a backer myself of a lot of campaigns, so I do have that perspective as well. And like you said, even if speaking from experience, you're gonna if you're crowdfunding your own campaign, you're gonna run into unforeseen problems.
Yeah,
Things are gonna go wrong here and there. But the most important thing is to just keep your backers in the loop. Let them know exactly what's going on. Um, like I said, from my perspective, the worst thing a creator can do who's running a crowdfunding campaign is just keep us in the dark. So
yeah,
we're wondering, okay, where is the book? And then you don't hear from them for 6 months. It's like that's the worst thing. So just transparency is the key for when it comes to crowdfunding.
for sure, for sure. So I have to ask then, what were your life changing comic books that you've read over the years that really changed you? Because everyone has a book like that. Like mine was V for Vendetta and Planetary were definitely two series that really freaking like changed the way I look at comics. Um, and of course, Miracle Man, Alan Moore's Miracle Man was another one. So, which books for you were the ones where like, whoa, this is something, you know, freaking that you read over and over again, that you could read over and over again, that you recommend your friends to read, and when they were when they get into comic books, which books were those? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, so when I got into comics in the '90s through my cousin, I was a huge Spawn fan. Like that was kind of my thing was Spawn. It was just so cool and edgy, and I was raised in a very religious household, so seeing him fight all
Oh,
these angels and demons and stuff,
yeah.
it kind of blew my mind. Like I had never seen anything like that before. Um, but so that was kind of my entryway. But then, obviously, anybody who gets into comics, you kind of go in, you read all the classics, and you kind of you learn your comic history, and you kind of find what your tastes are. For
Right.
me, I once I got into it, obviously I was into like the British invasion guys like Alan Moore and Warren Ellis, who you mentioned for Planetary. But of those like British invasion guys, like, and I know he's kind of a divisive character or creator. Some people love him, some people hate him. But I was and am still really into Garth Ennis. People
Oh,
know,
yeah.
yeah, from The Boys and Preacher, and his Punisher. To me, his Punisher Max run is one of, if not my favorite run of any comic book.
Yeah, same
Um,
here. With
oh,
what's his name? The late
Steve
what was
Dillon.
his name? Steve Dillon, man. Yeah, that was a great run. Yeah, that Max Punisher series was fantastic.
Yeah, he's and the thing, you know, his work resonates with me so much just because when I read a Garth Ennis comic, for the most part, he can be hit or miss, but when he's at his best, it resonates with me because it's like I could see that's what I want to do is I want to write stories with that balance of like over the top humor and moments where it doesn't take itself too seriously, but then it could turn on a dime and then all of a sudden like break your heart. Like I love that contrast between comedy and like full on like drama. And I think that's personified in works like Preacher and The Boys, where they can have these really lowbrow kind of humorous moments, like darkly humorous moments, but then when push comes to shove, it could be very heartbreaking and dramatic, and really surprise you with the storytelling. So
Yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah, Garth Ennis definitely has that fine line for sure. Yeah, now that I think about it more, yeah, you're right. Garth Ennis was definitely a writer who was able to balance both the dark comedy aspect and the heaviness of a dramatic effect in his stories. And
yeah,
yeah,
I
you're
think
right. Yeah, I never really thought about that.
yeah, he gets a bad rap, I think. Well, firstly, because he's not a fan of superheroes. Obviously, The Boys is a very
Right.
anti-superhero,
Yeah.
but also his. Some people can't look, and I understand it. They can't look past his like dark sense of humor. Very. He's a very like vulgar creator. But
Yeah.
like I said, if you look past that dark sense of humor, there's a really there's a lot deeper themes to his work that is really rewarding to find once you get into it.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah, from reading Preacher and not just I read his War Machine. I think he wrote War Machine for a while, if I'm not mistaken. No,
Uh, that might be
no,
someone
he
else.
didn't. I'm sorry. No, that's someone else. Yeah, that was someone else. I think that was Terry Austin who did that. I'm confusing
Mm,
him with Terry Austin. Um, but yeah, you're right. The he had that fine line. Like when I first read The Boys when it was first released, I was just like, damn, this guy just doesn't give a fuck. He's just gonna take it there. He doesn't care, dude. And
yeah,
that's admirable for me anyway. I don't know about everyone else, but for me, that's like, all right, this guy is not afraid to take it there, and that's I can respect that. I can respect that
yeah,
he takes it there and not flinch when he does take it there. And not apologize either when he does get the blowback. He's just like, hey, this is
mhm,
it. This is Garth Ennis to work, man. You don't like it? I'm
yep.
sorry, just don't buy the book. But people who do like it, they'll buy it. They'll buy it, and they're all about it. And Boys was a huge hit, but the what was his name? Paul Levitz? Was it Paul Levitz who got rid of it?
Oh
Who
yeah. He was the publisher at DC at the time.
Yeah,
I think.
he was so offended by it that he got rid of it, which I thought was a mistake because he had a hit, DC or not DC, but was it Vertigo? Was it released under
Well,
Vertigo?
it
If I
was
remember.
Wildstorm, which DC owned at the time.
Wildstorm. That's right. Yeah. So they made a mistake by letting that one go because now it's a huge, huge phenomenon. Everyone knows about The Boys. Everyone loves the show, and
Mhm.
so, but whatever, Garson has still got to laugh all the way to the bank with with his project. So that's good for him for sticking to his guns and not wavering to
Yeah,
pressure.
and I haven't watched the show. It is interesting to me to see how much it's like blown up because I was huge into the comic at the time.
Yeah,
Um,
same
so
here.
it is funny to see like people talking about it. It was like hey, I liked it before it was cool, but I
Yeah,
think
no, of course.
comic readers are used to that feeling because we're always in on the ground floor with this stuff, and then it's always fun to see it like turn mainstream in a way. Um,
Yeah, it does. It's bittersweet because you have the new fans coming in going, "Wow, this show's so great!" And it's like, "Well, have you read the comic?" Because
mhm.
you will really love the comic, and then the sad part is like, it was a comic book. No, I'll just stick to the show. And it's like,
Yeah,
you bastard! Like you have no idea what you're missing if
yeah,
if you don't pick up the comic book because the comic book is fantastic, and of course the source material is always better than the adapted material for the most
oh,
part.
yeah,
But
always.
I think the boys did a good job adapting it uh,
Yeah,
to
I'm very aware.
to the medium of television. So I have to give
Yeah,
them credit for that.
yeah, I'm
They
very wary of adaptations in general. But
Yeah, same here.
I've heard enough good things about the boys that I might consider watching it at some point.
Yeah,
Like for instance, I
I've
wouldn't watch
I've
the Preacher show because it just doesn't look right to me. But the boys seems like it's on the right track as far as adaptations go.
yes, because I've learned to accept adaptations so as long as they keep the spirit of the book intact. So, like for instance, I read Fight Club, the novel, and when I watched the film, obviously it's not the same as the novel, but I will say that the filmmaker, David Fincher, he kept the spirit of the novel intact in the film, which is what made the movie work for me. And The Boys does the exact same thing. It keeps the spirit intact, and albeit they changed a lot, obviously for obvious reasons. But I think they kept the dark humorous aspect of the comic intact in the show, and that's what made it work for me, was that they kept that.
Well, that's
And
good to hear. Yeah, because
so
the most important thing is capturing the spirit, or like whatever, like the essence of what a story is. And
what made the book great in the first place. It's the not just the aesthetic and the style of the art or the story, but the feel you get, the feeling you get when you read it, you know. And that's what's important for me when you adapt anything, is to you can change whatever you want, because obviously you can't do, you know, everything word for word and panel by panel, but if you could keep the spirit alive of what the book had into the film or the TV show, then you've done a good job in my book.
that's what I think not so much these days perhaps, but I think that's what the MCU did really well originally. Was it did kind of capture that energy of like the Silver Age, Stan and Jack, Marvel Comics, with the interconnected universe and all the way they'd have cameos, and they, for the most part, they were very faithful to the original costumes and characters and stuff. So, I think it shouldn't surprise anybody how much of a success the MCU was, just because they were so faithful to the original comics. And
absolutely. So, answer me this: Abductibles. If someone came to you and wants to adapt it, are you open for it? Are you open to it?
Yes, I wouldn't mind those royalty checks. Sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't go full Alan Moore as far as like, because he hates anytime his work gets adapted,
right?
Because he's very particular. Obviously, the thing is, like, an adaptation could go either way. Like, if it's really bad, it could kind of drag the series down in a way, because it kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouth.
Right.
But then if you, it's almost like winning the lottery. Like, if you get like a really, take Walking Dead for example. Essentially that the show, as good as it was, as far as Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead, was concerned, it was just like a big commercial for his comic, and the sales of the comic just went through the roof after that show came out.
Yeah.
So, it would be, I would definitely be open to an adaptation for sure. And if for no other reason than to get more eyes on the comics.
There you go.
And people have said that Abductibles in particular is kind of made for, like, it would make like the perfect like movie. Like,
I agree.
I agree. Just because the concept's so simple. I think there's definitely if a comic,
I look at it. I look at it more like it would be a great Adult Swim animated series. I think it would fit there. Either that, or or if a new company were to come up and want to have that style, then it would work. Definitely will work. I think it would be a very successful animated TV show if it was adapted to that. A film as well. Yeah, a film could work as well, because who doesn't like destruction and comedy, right? I mean, that's what sells. Yeah. So
we're entering interesting times. Speaking of Robert Kirkman, he's got the animated Invincible series coming out, his superhero book. And then I know Mark Miller is some of his stuff is going to be animated by Netflix. So who knows? Maybe we're on the cusp of like a big comic book turned into animation boom, which would be awesome.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. And right now is the time. If you're thinking about doing your own stuff, guys, now is the time to jump, because you know it is extremely competitive because there's a lot of people doing this. What Michael Derrick and I are doing, which is crowdfunding and getting our stuff out there. But
Hmm.
if you could just find your audience, if you could find the people who believe in you, they believe in your work, they're excited and enjoy your work, and it's worth it. It's worth all the work. It's worth all the time you put into and the effort you put into, to make your book a reality. And so Michael Derrick is a prime example of that. He has 3 campaigns, and his the other 2 you fulfilled. I'm assuming you fulfilled your previous 2 campaigns. So he's already headed the game. So he's one of many who are you know who are going to be around for a while. So it's good to see that the indie comic book community is growing, and that more and more people are starting to look our way and start to um, hey, what is this? This is interesting. Well, how does this backing a campaign work? That kind of thing. That's because I'm fairly new to it. I didn't get into it until late 2018. So when I got back into the social media world, I had no idea what Indiegogo was. I had no idea what a crowdfunding campaign was. And so when I started researching and finding out what it was, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, okay, you pay for someone, you have to pay someone for something they promise you later, like in the year, that kind of thing. Okay, this is new, and it's so far it if you do it well, it could work out for you. So kudos to you, Michael, for just stepping up and doing it. That's the key factor, is just doing it. So
Yeah, and that's
um,
what funding is all about. These books wouldn't exist without the backers supporting them because
absolutely,
we don't have the backing of these major companies to foot the bill for us. We're doing it all ourselves.
yeah,
Um, a lot of us, myself included, have day jobs, so this is really just all about passion for us, and we just do it
absolutely.
for the comics. So
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the key right there. Alan Moore was once asked by an interviewer what advice he had for people who wanted to break into the comic book industry, and I thought his answer was absolutely spot on, which was, if you're gonna do this for money, don't do it. But
mm-hmm.
if you're gonna do this because you love making comics, then do it. Because if you're gonna come in here to make try to get rich, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail miserably, because you're gonna wonder why no one likes your work or anything like that, and your focus is mainly on making money. But if you do this because you love making comics, or you love comic books in general, then you'll find success, because it'll find you. The success will find you, because your passion for your work will show to the reader, and the reader will buy that, because that's what it's all about. It's all about if you put your passion into your work. And
Hell yeah.
considering that you currently have 106 backers, there's 106 people who are ready and willing to buy this book because they can see your passion. So that's the key factor here, guys. Is make sure you have your passion to your work, and the readers will come, and you will find somewhat success. Depends. I guess it all depends on sometimes nice happy accidents occur, and you release something, you think, oh, it'll be okay, but then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, holy crap, a lot of people actually bought this. Cool, like this is this
Yeah,
is
that's
this
the
is
thing
working
is just
out.
put your stuff out there, and it'll be received however it is. But if you don't put it out there, you'll never know. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So before we call it a day, because we've been on for an hour, which is a great thanks once again. Thanks for coming on, and it's great to always talk to a fellow comic book enthusiast, especially one who's been a fan of comics since we were kids. That's what is supposed to unite us all, comic book
Mhm.
types. Is yes, we may come from different parts of the world. We may have different upbringings. We may come from different backgrounds and creeds and all that stuff. But the the common thread, the thing that's supposed to, at least for me, unite us, is our love for the comic book medium, because it's the comic books that made us who we are today. It's you know
Absolutely.
comic books, it's so unique. The medium is so unique because you could do so much with it, like your concept, for instance, like your Abductibles book. It's a high concept that no Hollywood studio would ever take a risk doing. And
Mm.
it's something you can't really, you could make it into you could write a novel about it, but it just wouldn't be the same. But in the comic book form, if you get the right artist with the right story, you have yourself a great book, you know. So that's why the medium is is something that should unite all of us, because we all love it. We all love the comic book medium, not so
Absolutely.
much the industry. So uh, there's that to think about. So Nimprod asks a good question. Maybe you may have a good answer for him. He says, "What do you guys think is the best way to sell indie comics at the moment? Crowdfund or website after the completed book?"
um, I've
What's
seen,
your 2 cents there, Michael Derrick?
yeah, I've seen people mention this before, like, because obviously, like I said, for a lot of us, we just simply can't afford to make the books without crowdfunding. But in the unique case where if let's say somebody can afford to just completely create the book from scratch out of their own pocket, and then they had the book ready to go, my take is that at that point you should just sell the book through the crowdfunding site. Obviously, I know that Indiegogo and Kickstarter, they take their cut, but
Right.
the thing is, like, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like if you have a book ready to go and you're going to sell it, you're going to get more eyes on it if you sell it through Indiegogo, let's say, rather than just your own website. Because the great thing about Indiegogo is that it has kind of like a built-in infrastructure. It's very easy to organize, like, backers and get their, you have their addresses so you can mail out the books and stuff. So, I mean, and I'm no tech guy, so the idea of, building my own website from scratch to sell the books through, that seems like a nightmare. So, someone's good at that, and, more power to them. But, but honestly, I do think, like, logistically, it would make more sense just to sell it through. I mean, then again, you could probably do it like through Etsy or any of these, like, sites that are designed for you to sell your own product. But that's it's to me, like, if I could ever, like, if I ever hit it big and I can afford to, like, just fund the book myself, I would probably just set up a demand store, like, through a crowdfunding site, just because people know where it is. It's almost like, scrolling through Indiegogo's comic section, like, it is almost like the modern day, like, comic book store. Like, you just scroll through and you see all the different selections that there are. So I don't know. I think that might be the way to go.
There you go. There's your answer, Nimprod. Uh, Personally, I don't know yet, because I'm still in the works of fulfilling my own campaign. And by the way, guys, that's all. I just want to give you guys an update if you're listening. The Ghetto Dragon is almost done. I currently have about a total of 6 pages left to color, and once those pages are done, then I'm ready to send to print. And then I'll have, once I get the books back, and I'll start shipping out. So you'll get them soon. And I think a little bit of both, maybe, Nimprod. I mean, that might be the best options. I mean, always exercise every option you may have. That's why I say. So, like Michael Derrick said, right now, Indiegogo is probably the best bet, because, like he said, there's already a built-in system. It's very convenient. You could use it to your advantage to make sure that your backers get their books on time, and you have your email addresses, you have your home addresses, so it's all ready to go for you. But if you are tech savvy, or if you know someone who's tech savvy, they could definitely build a website. Yeah, build a website, market it, advertise it. You have an extra space to do that, and if you could do that, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. You should always exercise every option you may have in order for you to sell your product. That's always key. Is always use all your options.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing, is crowdfunding is the big thing right now. Who knows what will be the big thing down the road? But
Exactly.
uh, as long as the art form's there, how we sell that art form, we got to be open to change.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another key factor. Adapt. Always be ready to adapt. Never ever stick to something that you know is going to go away. Just always be ready and open to adapt, because if you don't, then the world will leave you behind. And I think that's what's going on right now with the mainstream pros. They don't know how to adapt, because they're so enamored with their system, which is, I'm a pro, and I like the title, I like the title of Marvel writer or DC writer, and I don't want to get rid of it because everything else is beneath me, and that's a mistake because the comic book industry is unique in the sense that it's very decentralized. It's not centralized like Hollywood or television, for instance. There is no um, comic book writer guild of America. You have to join this guild in order to get work or be part of the quote unquote club. It's as long as you have enough money and if you have wits and if you have talent and skills as a writer or an artist or a letterer or a colorist or whatever, then you can make your comic. No one can stop you. And that's the great thing about making comics, is that no one can stop you and no one can tell you can't do that because it doesn't meet the guidelines of the guild, quote unquote. So yeah, take advantage of it, guys. This is the only last final like American, not just American, but the industry where you can find something. You could find something that fits for you. Like for instance, Walking Dead, Spawn, your book, the Abductibles, my book, The Good Old Dragon, and go with it. Just write it as far as you can, and there's nothing that can stop you. Just only yourself.
Absolutely.
Yourself is the only obstacle in your way. Telling yourself, "Oh, I can't do that." The moment you do that, that's it. You failed. You just gotta go for it.
And as somebody who's followed the industry my whole life and who's wanted to break in, so to speak, for years, from my perspective, there's never been a better time for an independent creator to jump in. The gates are open, so to speak. It's because crowdfunding has blown up and there's so many eyes on it right now. Definitely get in on it because you don't have to worry about editorial oversight. You don't have to worry about knowing the right people. The only people you need to know are your backers and fellow creators. So yeah, it's as somebody who's kind of wanted to get in the industry my whole life, it's definitely the best time to be an indie creator.
Absolutely. And to add to what you just said too, if you have some doubts of your own work, then it's okay to hire an editor. It's okay to hire your own editor to look over your stuff and just to make sure that you're on the right track. And if you do hire an editor and they do tell you, hey, this is actually pretty good, then you have the confirmation that, okay, I have something here. I have something that I could sell in the case. Cause I've done a few times in the 10 years that I've been trying to also, like you, try to break through the industry. I would hire an editor to look over my scripts to make sure that I had everything in order. And, I had my own experiences with confirmations of editor going, hey, this is actually pretty good. This is actually really good. I actually wouldn't mind reading this if this was a comic book. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm on the right track. So I'm going, Edwin, what's up? What's up, dude?
Hey, Edwin.
We were just talking about your work, your Ace. Well, not your work, but the artist you hired for your Ace project. It was a name that I think will probably be known in the years that come as a great indie comic artist that's reliable and talented and skilled.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that's I think that about covers our interview here. Is there any last things you want to say or any last final words of wisdom before we call it a day?
Just if anybody likes kind of what they heard today and they like the idea behind my comic, obviously talking with Julius, like you could tell we love this stuff so much, and I like to think that love is reflected in my comics. And so we got 24 days left. We are on our final 30-day extension, so with our fixed goal, it's all or nothing. If we either get funded or if we don't, the book unfortunately won't be able to be made. So please do, if you like the concept that initial pitch, please do pick it up. Like I said, even though this is Abductibles 2, you can get issues 1 and 2 together. That's a total of 112 pages of story. And it's my third crowdfunding campaign. I've fulfilled the first 2. This is all I want to do is just make comics, and I'm so grateful for everybody who's already supported and is considering to support. So yeah, just check it out. We got a ton of art on the Indiegogo page. A lot of it's lettered. I'm lettering the book myself. I'll be adding even more lettered pages in the coming days. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
read through those if you like the concept, and yeah, give us a chance. We got a lot of options, whether you want digital or the physical copies. We got art commission perk, and just a lot of variety. Got some add-on perks, so just check it out, see if you like it, and yeah, give us a shot.
There you have it, straight from the horse's mouth, as the saying goes.
Yes.
So yeah, so if you have not backed the Abductibles 2 Reticulous, do it today and help make it happen for this project. It sounds like a great project. I will be backing it myself. And 24 days left, which is ample time. And if you guys want to wait, don't wait too late. Don't wait until the last minute. But if you do, then hopefully you guys will back it and get some of those perks, because it is important. The upside to the crowdfunding campaign community that's been growing is the perks. And so if you select one of the perks, you'll get something special on top of is that right, or is it just a simple straight, like for instance, like these digital deluxe comics? Is there something like extra that they get for backing some of these tiers?
So we do have after we extended, I did move some of the stretch goals around. So now anybody who backs the physical book will also get a free magnet from
There you
Sacred
go.
Comics. So just to add a little more bang for your buck, these books are going to come bagged and boarded and shipped in a Gemini mailer, so you don't have to worry about your book getting damaged in transit or anything like that.
There you
And
go.
we're also gonna have pinup gallery in the back of the book for some extra art. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of cool extras and bonus features for people for sure.
There you go. There you have it. So back it today, guys. Don't hesitate. Support indie. It is the future of comics, because the mainstream is dying due to their, I guess, for lack of a better word, incompetency.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're dealing with a new generation of comic book creators who want to fill that void and show the pros how it's done, how customer service is done. And so don't hesitate, back it, and let all your friends know about it. There's a lot of people who I know for sure are into the alien lore. So if you know anyone who may enjoy this book, let them know. Hey, there's a book out there called Abductibles 2. You should check it out and show some love, back it. So with that said, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and stay safe out there. And yeah, we'll see you next Saturday on another edition of Talking Comics. I don't know who I'm going to have on yet, but I will have someone for sure during the week to confirm if they're going to come on the show to talk about their project. So once again, have a good weekend, and thank you for joining us on Talking Comics. We'll see you again next time.